I've definitely seen a lot of this happening. I'm just so I mean, I guess I don't know anything about olives, but what I'm looking at this beds here, I see a lot of green growth of plants that are established in soil structure here, and I see recently tilled land without quite so much green growth here. I don't know what this is going to look like in 2 weeks, but I definitely feel like these perennials should have root systems that reach out. So I don't know what the traditional practices are and why they're done. And I think we were trying to talk about this a couple days ago when we were walking around. I'd be curious to see what this looks like and what this looks like in 2 weeks and 2 months. When we were down at that other farm 3 days ago, they had been plowing the fields and seeding annuals that they were then making hay from. But the following spring were the areas where they had made hay. They had done that the previous year. They'd plowed the field, put the annual crops in, and made the hay. All those stems of annuals were dead in the ground, and there wasn't much coming up. So I'm just questioning the strategy of the seeding and how many of these are perennials, how many of these are annuals. Because it seems to me like establishing deep-rooted perennials is got to be the strategy for pastures. I don't know what the traditional practices were with having cows or sheep underneath the olive trees. It's a little bit harder to see here, but when we were down at the other farm, the green grass, the areas where the grass was green was basically under the trees, and everywhere else it was brown. And
because of the lack of water, and down the trees there is the water that condensates in the leaves.
this was, yeah, or the plant roots. There's life in the soil.
Yes.
So I mean, when we talk about polycultures and agroforestry and multiple canopy layers, I mean, I've heard a lot of people sort of speaking fairly critically of the intensive olive production that's going in on scale, and I understand part of that coming from the intensive chemical use, but when you're in a very highly arid area, I think I'd want to have as much canopy layer as possible, or I would say the amount of space between these trees that just bare ground, which dries down a lot in the middle of summer, is not optimal. So I don't know if I'm saying anything particular, if I've got a clear answer, but can we engage a conversation?
I just think that it's an interesting to compare this and this, because here there's a lot of green, a lot of perennial.
But there's no comparison. This is a well successful cedar in the 1 year and something, 1 year and a half ago, and this is an ancestral, because this one is in a good window of opportunity with the soil in the correct conditions, and this is after waterlogged. So
This was tilled when it was waterlogged.
yes,
And so the soil became extremely compact.
seed, was not a very smart option in the time, and we need to restart the process this
Yeah.
year. This year, I hope for next 10 years I needn't.
So
to
this
do
is a
nothing.
once and done strategy here,
Once in 10 years or more.
or whatever.
Or
Okay,
whatever.
good. So I don't know exactly what's happening here. I'm looking at this layer, which looks better. I'm looking at that, which looks, and then the question is, how many of these plants are perennials and how many of them are annuals?
More than half are perennials.
Perfect.
And our strategy is we have a cover of perennial plants, and we add the direct seeder. We use the direct seeder for the spring, and seed some 4 plants.
Mm-hmm.
Sorghum,
Sorghum. Yeah.
erva de Sudão, I don't know, milheto, Sudan grass,
Yes.
milheto,
Millet. Yep.
pear millet,
Mhm.
and another C4s
Yeah.
for the summer, for make shed on for the perennials,
Yeah.
and have the carbon pump
Perfect.
working all in the summer
Beautiful.
in the soil.
Beautiful.
And the winter, we also with the direct seeder, we had some brassicas
Yeah.
for have more carbon production in the winter, and
Perfect.
we have the system maximized the photosynthetic capacity and the carbon pump in the soil optimized all the year around.
Beautiful.
This is our goal.
That makes sense.
I'm not sure if we are doing
The logic of that
the
makes
logic,
makes
it's
makes a lot of
okay.
sense.
The
Yeah.
logic is okay.
Yeah.
Probably the strategy and the details are not the right ones, but year after year,
I think it
we'll
sounds pretty
optimize.
good. And so the question is, that farm we went down to, are they doing anything this sophisticated and strategic as far as the types
I
of
don't
plants they're
know.
putting in the mixes?
I'm not sure, but André, if he's there, ele está a perguntar se na Maria Antônia. Asking in English.
Yeah. So Maria Antonia's farm, where they were tilling up and planting, is it the same ratio of annuals and perennials to have the nurse crops be the annuals to establish the perennials that they planted in the area they had just been tilling? Or not? And why not?
Oh, because there it's many times harder than here, the climate, the soil. So the idea there is to support the proper grazing strategy without having to buy too much hay from outside.
Mhm.
So the idea is to do a little bit of the land every year on a forage that is not too damaging and ideally enhances a bit the soils for the animals to have hay, so we can do bale grazing. And then recover the perennial grasslands with this support, because it would be financially not viable, because there is a big emphasis on keeping the business
Yeah.
profitable, right?
Right.
So the idea is to do what works, and we're dealing with soils there of 4 TC with
Yeah.
1% organic matter, with
Yeah.
very thin.
Mhm.
The rock is so
Yeah.
it's what is possible to,
Yeah.
and we're correcting the soils there as much as possible.
So budget's a limiting factor. Keeping
Yeah.
the cows fed with the annual grasses that are going rapidly.
The focus there is the animals are the driver of the regeneration,
Yeah.
bringing the perennials back, the natural, like the native perennials,
Yeah.
while the business is being viable.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many people come from which part of the country or have issues of scale or grazing, but it was very intriguing to me to see how denuded and worn the lands were, to see how far apart the trees were. So what's going on here seems much more strategic as far as it's all concerned. I'm not sure when this is all growing. Are you planning on making hay? Are you planning on having cows running through here? Having chickens running through here? What's the long-term vision for
If,
integration of this
if we have-
property?
if the weather helps us,
Yeah.
the first cut will be for hay.
Yeah.
Probably the second cut will be also for hay,
Mhm.
and only the third cut will be for cows.
And-
we normally we certainly we have one cut for the hay, and another a second cut for the cows. If was a fantastic year like last year in this field, we had 3 cuts.
Yeah.
Two for hays and
But with
one-
irrigation, it's important.
No,
This
no,
is
no, no,
supported
no, no,
with
no, no, no,
sprinklers.
no,
Ah,
No,
Paolo,
no,
here,
no,
there was
no, no,
sprinkler.
no.
We have to.
I don't
No,
see
no,
sprinklers.
No, no, no,
This
no,
was
no.
sprinkled
We are
here.
no. There's no sprinklers.
Ah.
Wha- the only thing we do is we have the cows.
Yeah.
After 3 days we have the chickens.
Yeah.
And after the chickens go, we use 10 hours of water.
Mm-hmm.
We put around 40 millimeters of water before the chickens go.
Yeah.
Okay. And we never put any more water
Yeah.
until the rain or
Yeah.
until the cows or the chickens
Come
comes
through again. Yeah.
So boys, there is water. So in other places like where we were, it's 40 degrees and there's.
But they're
zero
digging all those ponds that are going to have lots of water in them. It's okay.
water. No, just
I don't-
say the context.
I don't wanna spend
All-
too long here.
All of a sudden
Yeah.
it looks like it's context specific what is done. I'm not saying it's the best strategy or worst strategy, but we
The
need to
point I want to drive
strategy
towards
is-
is that, as far as I'm concerned, these lands here are highly denuded and desertified, and until you can develop strategies that move towards systemic, perennial, deep-rooted plants, we're not going to be, having the experience of the water cycle, creating clouds, cooling the temperatures in the summer, maybe making rain happening, and shifting the underlying dynamic. And so I'm seeing a lot of these bare soils. If the strategy is to come through, till it up, put annuals in, make hay, but then have it be basically dry and bare, and not establish that deep-rooted water capturing, water cycle functioning dynamic, then you're not going to be addressing the summer temperature extremes in the country. So if those who live here in Iberia broadly do not want to have these extreme temperatures for 3 months of the year, which is really making a lot of things not work, systemically working towards reestablishing those deep-rooted perennial plants in the pastures, under the trees, I think was a really strategic piece of this puzzle. I don't know how to do it. I'm happy to learn, I'm happy to share and facilitate the learning, but as far as the systemic sort of 30,000 foot view is concerned, I think that's just something I want to emphasize. So if you're coming through and you're tilling it up once to reestablish the perennials, to have the annual nurse crops that are reestablishing the perennials, that are getting that system function going, awesome. That's a moment in time. It's a thing to do once to facilitate a whole system reestablishment. But those deep-rooted perennials that reach way down, that have amazing root systems, that drop the carbon way down, that capture the rain when it rains, and reestablishes the water cycle and the water table,
Here
that
we can,
needs to happen broadly over the landscape.
Here we can see the nature helped by man here, and the nature helped only by the cattle,
Yeah.
the cows. Our neighborhood have also the same soil for sure, have the same cows or more cows than us, and here we had the soil with some trace minerals, with some tillage in the first year, and she does nothing.
Yeah.
What she does is the holistic management. Only bring the cows, cannot make the rotation right, but
Yeah.
that's bad management of grain.
So we can look at that in 3
but
months.
She leaves a lot of time for the plants could grow up.
Yeah.
Have more than half a year for sure from to rest. In maximum, she brings the cows to twice a week.
But it's not the right. There's no herd effect, so there's
Yeah.
no animal impact.
So let's not go into it in too much depth, because I do want to get back there before
Okay.
we run out of time. I do want to sort of take a mental picture right now of what you see, and then if we come back in 3 months, this is something we can also look at. We can see what things look like over there. We can see what that looks like. We can see what this looks like. But it's one thing to talk about vegetables and annuals, which is always going to be a fairly small percentage of the landscape. But if you're talking about regenerating the ecosystem and fixing the water cycle and cooling the temperature extremes, we need to be talking about how these broad acres are managed and systemically addressed. So yeah, perhaps not enough time for that right now, but at least
Also-
a beginning of opening of the
I
conversation.
also invite you to observe when you leave the farm, the olive oil fields you will find. That's like this farm 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and you can change the difference. As the human can be the key species for the change, for the restoration, for the
Yeah.
regeneration. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to some of those hoop houses.